What is up, my Lorcana Goons? Welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. My name is Kevin, and in this video, we're going to go over some of the best decks from Set 5 that have been topping tournaments from this weekend. So if you like this tournament-ready content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you are a Lorcana Goon yourself, because it does support the channel. So right here, I have the top 8 from the side event of the Disney Lorcana Challenge in Toronto. If you guys didn't know, the main event for that DLC was still Set 4 format with post-Bucky errata, but the side events were Set 5 legal. So they had a side event with more than 40 players. I believe it was 48 players actually. Shout out inkdex.com for the information and PPG. And this is the top 8 from that side event. I believe it was a 2-game format as well, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, judging by this Rapunzel mat that I've won fair and square, I'd like to say I do know a little bit about the 2-game format and these DLC experiences. So we have the side events going on. We have a very wide variety of color combinations in this top 8 for this side event. It's still a 40+ person side event 2-game format. We have Ruby Sapphire taking the first place. I believe it was just Swiss and there was no top cut, so this was just after the Swiss rounds, right? Ruby Sapphire, then we got Emerald Steel, then we even have a Emerald Amethyst, a Ruby Amethyst, obviously, because there always has to be some Ruby Am. We have a little bit of Hyper Aggro, some Amber Steel Song is what it's looking like, an Amethyst Steel, and then a Amber Emerald deck. This is looking like 8 different decks in this top 8 breakdown. Shout out to all these players for doing well at the side events. Let's check out these deck lists. We're also going to go over 8 more deck lists from the Red Saber Games case tournament that happened in Southern California after these, so I'll make sure to stay tuned for those as well. But here we have the first place list from that side event Set 5 competitive constructed tournament at the Disney Lorcana Challenge in Toronto. Shout out you, Andrew No, for getting first place in this 2-game format, which again is not easy. You did it with Ruby Sapphire. This is Set 5 format, so we are playing a lot of new cards. We got 4 copies of Tipo, then we're playing 4 copies of Sisu Daring Visitor. We got 3 copies of Grandma Tala. We need the 4 Flavorsham, Maui's, and the Sisu Empowering Sibling. That's the shift target. Obviously, we need 4 Tamatoas, and we're playing 4 Fishbone and 4 Popsicle. We also got 3 Medusas in this deck alongside 2 Cusco Selfish Emperor for our 6-drop characters. Cusco's a new card from Shimmering Skies that lets you disrupt locations and items by putting them into the inkwell. You could also do it to yourself for whatever reason if you need some more ink. And then Cusco has that extra ability to pay 4 extra ink to give your characters +1 resist, which is not a once per turn ability, by the way, so you can do that multiple times if you really wanted to. And Cusco Quest for 2. And in a deck like Ruby Sapphire, that lore stacks up because once you get to that Dime Tamatoa play, it's over. Speaking of Dime, we are playing 2 copies of Lucky Dime with our item combination of 3 Ice Blocks. It's looking like we've gone back to playing Ice Blocks in this color combination. This looks a lot like Sailor's list, by the way, so big shout out to Sailor. He's a Ruby Sapphire Goon. We're only playing 2 copies of Be Prepared in this deck because we are playing the 4 shiftable Sisu. We have 3 Brawl, which I like to see because I think you need your outs to Diablo still in this meta. You have to respect cards like Diablo. If not, they're going to run away with the game. So it's very important to play Brawl. You also want to be able to brawl the opposing cards like Ariel in the meta right now. A lot of people are playing like Lemon Lime Aggro. As you can see, Steel is very popular from the top 8 that we just saw, and a lot of Steel cards will fold to Brawl, all the Goons targets in the beginning, you know, and in general, I feel like Ruby cards are very strong against Steel cards right now, like Madame Medusa, Be Prepared. Even the 3 copies of Maleficent, Monstrous Dragon are just going to be able to eliminate cards like Robin Hood, Sad Beast, and usually anything that Amber Steel or like Amethyst Steel can drop on you. So right now, Ruby Sapphire looking pretty good in my opinion. We're also playing 1 copy of Hideaway, which also lets you put a chosen item or location into the player's inkwell face down and exerted. Similar to Cusco, but it's another way to get rid of locations in case your opponent's trying to run away with Queen's Castle or something. Now Sapphire has the ability to just one-shot locations, which is nice. We also got Visions of the Future, which is just a big version of Develop Your Brain. And we got 3 copies of Develop Your Brain as well. We have a 3-3 split, which is kind of interesting. Visions of the Future lets you look at the top 5 cards and pick a card for, to add to your hand, whereas Develop Your Brain is only the top 2. So a little bit more consistency for the Ruby Sapphire players. Love to see it. I think this deck is very powerful in this current meta. You have a lot of the Ruby cards to out the early game Hyper Aggro stuff like Sisus and Brawls to stop Daisies, or a lot of Emerald cards, for example. One of the biggest flaws with this deck, though, is that sometimes you will not see that removal. Sometimes you won't see your ramp in time. Sometimes you can't get to that shiftable Sisu in time. So some of these hyper aggro decks, these Emerald Amethyst decks, are known to have a very easy time against your deck. But we just got a lot more support for this color combo, this format. So I do feel like you can, capitalize on the board with even cards like Tippo, for example. It helps you ramp a little bit faster into your shiftable Sisu target, which is always nice. In second place after Swiss, we have a 63 card deck by Matt Lopez. Shout out you. Emerald Steel, playing a variety of cards that I'm not entirely used to seeing, but this is like a theory that I was thinking about actually, so I'm really glad to see it do well in a tournament. So as you can see right off the bat, the first thing I'm going to notice is that we are playing a variety of Floodborne characters in Emerald Steel, and it's looking like we're trying to take advantage of our Chief Bogo. We have 4 copies of Chief Bogo. This is an uninkable character that quests for 2 that says whenever you play a Floodborne character, deal 1 damage to each opposing character. This is a live reaction too, because I haven't opened any of these deck lists, so I am actually like in awe, because there's not that many 4 of copies in this deck either. We have 4 Chief Bogo, 4 Cheshire Cat, 4 Diablo, and that's it. That's the only 4s we have in this deck. Everything else we're starting off looks like it's 3. We got 3 Diablo Maleficent Spy, 3 Pegasus Gift, 3 Robin Hood Goons, 3 Flynn Rider Charming Rogue, Mistress of Me, 3 Peak Games Master. We have the Jafar Floodborne Shiftable. This is where the Floodborne start coming in, so we can start triggering our Chief Buy One Get One. Then we got Pegasus Cloud Racer, Beast Sad Boy Tragic Hero. We got the Robin Hood Sherwood. We have the new Simba Son of Mufasa. It is a Shift 4 character. It's a 3 Strength 5 Willpower Simba. We don't play any Simba targets to shift this onto, but doesn't really look like it matters when we're playing a Floodborne base deck anyway. So when you play this Simba, you can banish a chosen item or location. Just like that. Very powerful, very strong. We have officially power crept Beast hard-headed, I think, personally. Tinkerbell, Giant Fairy, we're playing this at 2. It's also a Floodborne. We're playing 3 copies of our Floodborne Cheshire Cat. Love to see it. Fear of the Shadows. Check this out. This is a Shift 5 Cheshire Cat. He's an 8 cost inkable, which is nice because you can ink it away. 5 strength, 6 willpower. Quest for 2. Has evasive and an extra ability that says exert. Banish chosen damaged character, which is pretty good in a deck like this where you're combining it with Steel. You have Let the Storm Rage on, Strength of a Raging Fire. We're playing those at 3 as our damage dealing cards. Also, Tinkerbell deals damage, by the way, alongside Chief Buy One Get One. So that's going to make that Cheshire Cat very powerful. We have 2 Babooms, 2 We Don't Talk About Bruno, 2 Grab Your Swords, and 2 Whole New World, because if we're going to play broken cards, we might as well play one of the most broken cards in Steel, which is Whole New World. This is a very interesting take on Emerald Steel. Who needs Bucky? Bucky who? Let's take advantage of Floodborns anyways with this deck. I like it, man. If you open up double Bogo and start dropping these Floodborns, you're using Grab Your Swords every time. That's pretty strong, However, I do have to wonder how this fares against a deck that plays Cogsworth or double Cogsworth on you. That is my only fear so far. There's not really much of an out to Cogsworth in this deck, but still a very interesting deck. Love to see it. Shout out you, Matt Lopez. Next up, we have another Emerald deck. This is 3rd place after Swiss from this Set 5 side event tournament. We have Chris Larrabee. Shout out you. We have the following cards in this Emerald Amethyst deck. We're playing 4 copies of Merfolk, Diablo. We also have 4 copies of Flynn Rider, Ursa the Deceiver, Madam M. Fox, Diablo, the Shiftable Devoted Herald. We have Prince John, Ursa the Deceiver of All, because we like to sing them songs. For songs, we have 4 Sudden Chill, 4 Friends on the Other Side. And then we're also playing 3 You're Welcome, which is a new card from Shimmering Skies. This is a song that costs 4, lets you shuffle a character or item or location into the deck, and that player draws 2 cards. So you can do this offensively or defensively and give yourself some more ammo for your hand. We got 1 copy of We Don't Talk About Bruno and 2 copies of Mother Knows Best. That's going to be the songs that we have for our Ursula. And we have some other characters in this deck like Madam M Snake, so we can bounce our heavy questers probably. We got 2 copies of Lucifer Cunning Cat, which I think is really powerful this meta, especially against those Sapphire decks. We have Cricky. This is a 5 cost inkable character. He quests for 3 and gives all your characters 3 strength on play. So it's pretty good if you need to out an opposing castle or something, or an opposing location that's really big. And you can always bounce this back and play it again and kind of stack that if you ever have that much ink, right? We're also playing 3 copies of the Ursula Floodborne Sea Witch Queen, which is nice. This is going to be a shiftable Ursula character. You have 2 targets in this deck. You got Deceiver and Deceiver of All. She quests for 3, so this deck can be kind of aggressive in my opinion. So that's definitely going to be able to get you to 20 lore a little bit faster. We also are playing 2 copies of Lyle Tiberius. This is a 3-cost uninkable character with 2 strength, 4 willpower. I've actually been seeing this card see some meta play at the DLC, which is pretty cool too. But it's a good card because it has 2 effects. When you play Lyle, it gives an opposing character reckless, and then whenever one of your characters is banished, each opponent loses 1 lore. So that lore math gets a little tricky, and you start being able to come back in the game because of Lyle Tiberius. And we're playing 1 copy of Hypnotize because you can never have enough discard in an Emerald discard deck. Am I right? But this color combination is still very powerful this meta. I personally want to try it out myself. I like the idea of going Prince John into Ursa Deceiver of All, or sorry, vice versa. You go Ursa Deceiver of All, then you go Prince John next turn. You can sing Sudden Chill twice with your Ursula, and then your opponent discards 2 cards and you draw 2 cards. It's also very nice to be able to go Ursa Deceiver of All and then sing Friends on the other side twice because you draw 4 cards. I know a little bit about Lorcana, and I know that drawing cards is very nice in Lorcana. So take my word for it. That is a very good combo. Look, I even got a Lorcana shirt on. If you can't trust the Lorcana goon with a Lorcana shirt on, who can you trust? Next up in 4th place after Swiss, we have Rolando Intal. Shout out you for this awesome Ruby Amethyst deck profile. If you guys don't know, Ruby Amethyst is probably my favorite color combination, my favorite deck, so I always like covering it and seeing it in top cut of some tournaments. We're playing for the following. We have Olaf, the Snowman, the 1-drop. We got 4 Rafikis, Snake. We're playing 4 Madam M Fox because it's part of the Petting Zoo package with Rabbit and Goat over here. Then we have 4 Maui alongside 4 Friends on the other side. And now we're playing a bunch of variety of characters. We have 1 Cusco, the Wanted Llama, aka Scared Cusco. We have 2 copies of Pinocchio Talkative Puppet, 2 copies of Flynn Rider Frenemy, 3 Maleficent Sorceress, 2 Merlin Crab, which is always nice. Only 2 Sisu Emboldened Warrior, which we're used to seeing a bunch of these, right? We're playing 1 copy of Super Goof, which is something that I've been seeing a lot of players put into the Ruby Amethyst decks. It's a way to gain you some extra lore. Whenever this character challenges, you gain 2 extra lore, which is not bad, I guess, in a deck where you can, jump into some goats and win you the game. We also got 2 copies of Lady Tremaine, 2 copies of Madame Medusa because we love the ladies in red. A 2-2 split seems pretty fair going into a meta where you're not sure what exactly is going to be played, and both these cards definitely have merit to be played in this very aggro meta. A couple of 1-ofs in this deck which I do want to note, like the Sorcerer's Spellbook, which is a card from the second chapter, which is also seeing a lot of play right now. It's a way to generate you more lore. So if you're playing goats, you're playing Super Goose, and you're playing Spellbooks, you're going to be able to burst yourself into that 20 lore a little bit faster is what it's looking like. Only 3 copies of Be Prepared and 1 copy of Be King Undisputed. 1 copy of Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, which I haven't seen in Ruby Amethyst lists in a long time, which is pretty cool. And 3 copies of Teeth and Ambitions. I really like Teeth and Ambitions. I played 1 Teeth and Ambitions at the DLC in Texas, and I finished top 32, and I regretted not playing more Teeth and Ambitions. Sometimes I wonder if that would have made the difference, in continuing on with my day that time. But I really like Teeth and Ambitions in a deck like this. Don't sleep on Teeth and Ambitions. In general, I'm not a big fan of playing this many different characters. I'd probably want to cut down and just play more copies of something. You know what I mean? But it looks like you're playing a variety of things. It's like a jack of all trades deck. But, we're playing 8 1-drops because you got to combat the aggro stuff. It's what it's looking like. And Teeth plus Cusco is pretty nice, but most of the time you want to be able to go Teeth on a character so that your Flynn can trigger, or so that your characters can do a little bit of more extra damage, so that you can go Be King and kind of simplify the game state a little bit, or something like Lady Tremaine. But Ruby Amethyst is still going to have its place in the meta. We're also playing 2 copies of the Queen's Castle. I feel like Queen's Castle is in a weird spot right now. A lot of the decks that Queen's Castle was really good against now have location removal. Everybody knows how to get rid of Queen's Castle. Everybody plays around Queen's Castle, so part of me doesn't even want to play it in the meta right now, so I can understand why this card might have been cut to 2. So very interesting list to see. Very cool. I'll be real with you guys though, I'm not a big fan of Super Goof. I think the card's buns. But enough about Super Goof. He's not an aggro card, not nearly as aggro as this deck style. We have Adam Danielle, shout out you for getting top 8 in this DLC side event, set 5 format. We were playing Hyper Aggro. Obviously, we were going to see a Daisy Hyper Aggro deck in this top cut, right? If you don't know what Daisy Duck does yet, where have you been? Get out of that rock that you've been sleeping under. Check this out. It's a 1-cost character, uninkable, 1 strength, 4 willpower. Quest for 2. Anytime you quest with it, your opponent looks at the top card of their deck. If it's a character, they keep it. If it's not, it goes to the bottom of the deck. Hitting Beat Prep off this card, hitting Brawl, hitting Teeth and Ambitions, all the cards you can hit from this, it's so frustrating. Like, when I play against Daisy Duck, I'm just hoping for the character, and when I don't see it, oh my god, I cringe every time. Cringe every time when my one jumps go to the bottom of the deck on turn 2, right? We're also playing Lilo. We're playing 4 copies of Maleficent Biding Her Time. These are 1-cost characters that quest for 2. Uninkable. We have more 1-cost characters like Pascal, 3 copies. Chernobog Followers, 3 copies, and 4 Magic Broom, which is nice to see. For 2 costs, we have the Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain, the 4 copies of Simba Protective Cub. He's a bodyguard to protect our 1-drops. Dang, Hyper Aggro decks have been going Lilo Simba since the first chapter, so this is kind of cool to see, actually. We're also playing 4 copies of Madame Mim Snake, 4 copies of Baloo, Donald Duck. These are the Amber cards that help you burst lore as well. Baloo's going to be able to represent 2 lore on the field, potentially even 3 if you play him non-exerted. And when you play Donald, it's like playing an extra goat. You give another lore to a character, that character gains for +1 more, and he has bodyguard too, so he's going to protect your pigs on the perfect curve. We're also playing Madame Mim Fox because it's the best rush character in Amethyst. It's a bounce character too, so it's a little unfair to be able to quest with your Lilo, bounce back Lilo, replay Lilo, and then get a good Fox trade. We're playing 4 Merlin Goats because it just wins you the game. 4 Befuddle, 2 Bare Necessities, 2 copies of Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. Not 4. I usually see a lot of Hyper Aggro players max out on this card because it just literally says gain 2 lore. It's a new card from Shimmering Skies that lets you burst that lore. And then 2 copies of the Library, Gift for Belle. This is a new location that has a 3 cost, a 1 move cost, and 8 willpower. And anytime a character there is banished, you draw an extra card. So one of the best plays is to be able to move your Broom and your Churnabogs there. You exert them for their abilities, and then you draw an extra card for the Churnabog and the Library there, so that's pretty good value. But again, locations are in a weird place right now. You know, I feel like you play this card, it gets you a little bit of value, and when you start moving your characters to there, your opponent's going to be able to clear the location first before clearing the characters, and sometimes that happens on the same turn anyway, so you just don't get the value. Before Befuddle, with a lot of the combination of these characters is very good too, because you can just ready your characters. We're not playing too many actions or non-characters in this deck. I do want to stress that, because like when you play against Emerald, or if you're playing an Emerald deck and you're playing against Hyper Aggro, like 9 times out of 10, you're going to try and play like Ursula Deceiver on turn 2 just to have a character, and you're never going to hit a song. Like, you don't ever hit songs when you play against this deck, you know? So this deck's very good against like the Emerald stuff, just the Ursulas or Bare Necessities or something like or some of those cards that look at your hand to try and manipulate it. And obviously it's a Hyper Aggro deck, so you just get to 20 faster than everybody else, which is pretty good in a 2-game format, because I bet you this person had a lot of time in between their rounds to go get a snack or use the bathroom or something. And those are the real winners. Next up, we have an Amber Steel list in this top 8 side event. It's looking like we're playing a variety of songs in this list, but no flutes, no harps. We're just playing characters now. So this is a very interesting list. I'm so used to seeing flutes and or harps as a win con for Amber Steel, and now we're just playing characters and songs the way we used to in the first chapter. So let's take a look at this list. We got 4 copies of the following: Daisy Duck, Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, the Queen Goons, Ursula Vanessa, which is pretty nice for a 2-drop, Mr. Smee, Ariel, Lawrence, which is very good to quest for 2. Lawrence is a 3 strength character, 0/4, but if he has no damage on him, he becomes a 4/4. Very strong card in my opinion. We're also playing 4 copies of Rapunzel, the Queen, for shiftable reasons obviously, at the Storm Rage on, Strength of a Raging Fires, and then Along Came Zeus and A Whole New World at 4. Wow, I don't think I've seen Along Came Zeus at 4 in a long time, but if you're playing Vanessa Ursula, Along Came Zeus is really powerful. It's a pretty crazy interaction. You'll play Cinderella Ballroom Sensation on turn 1, right? So now your Storm Rage on, your Strength, and all those cards are live, and your opponent usually wants to stop your Cinderella Ballroom Sensation from going off, so they'll try and use their removal on it. But if you follow up with the Vanessa Ursula, not only are all those cards live again, the Storm, the Strength, but now Zeus is live as well. So Ursula Vanessa is going to put in work this format, trust. And we're playing 2 copies of Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain, so you have more lore to gain. 2 copies of Benjamin, so we have some idol removal. 2 copies of Ariel Sonic Warrior, which I'm not really used to seeing in the meta, but it is some good removal. It's like a smash that'll go off anytime you play a song, but you have to have the ink for it, which, you know, Amber Steel sometimes gets you to that point where, you know, it's questionable with how many inkables you got to play in this deck. But this list isn't playing too many Uninkables. It's looking like we have 17 Uninkables, which is kind of high, but, you know, in a deck where you can Whole New World and you can sing most of these cards, it's not too bad at all. And then we're finishing it off with some more songs. We have 2 World's Greatest Criminal Mind to deal with pesky Mauis and whatnot, and then 2 copies of the Bare Necessities, because we want to hit Be Prepared off of that card, right? Sometimes only 2 Bare Necessities, though, feels kind of risky, you know what I mean? Because I just really want to see this card after Whole New World, so you can, you know, look at their hand and get rid of their Be Prepared, get rid of, like, any of their cards cards. Under the Sea, you know, Under the Sea does hit this deck a little bit. But the addition to Daisy Duck in Amber Steel is actually wild. You know, like it's such a good card in this deck that you don't need those win conditions of, you know, Sleepy's Flute or Harp or Pride Lands or any of those things. And you know, you can still play them, you can still try them out, and if you're seeing success with those cards, don't doubt yourself, you know. But in general, you can play it like this now with just characters and songs, which is great. So shout out you, Hillary Tran, for getting top 8 at the DLC side event set 5 format. Next up, we got an Amethyst Steel list piloted by Kelly Ravensburger. Shout out you, getting top 8 at this side event with 40 plus players. Amethyst Steel, my goons. This is an Amethyst Steel broom deck. This is a broom goon if I've ever seen one. So don't sleep on brooms this format. Wow, check this out. We're playing 4 copies of the following: Magic Broom and Luminary Keeper, Captain Hook, Madam M Snake. We got the Yen Sid at 4. This is very good with your broom cards in an aggro deck because you're going to be able to draw a card every time you play Yen Sid if you have a broom. And if you got 2 brooms on the board, Yen Sid's going to let you quest for 3. And questing for 3 is really strong in Lorcana, right? So having a 2-drop character that can quest for 3, that not only is inkable, but they have 3 willpower, so they'll survive a lot of stuff. It's very strong, very, very strong. We have 4 copies of Madam M Fox. We got the Magic Broom. This is the industrial model broom. 4 copies of Pl Games, and we are playing 4 copies of Friends on the other side, Storm Rage on, and that's going to be all for the 4 ofs. And then we're playing a variety of other cards in this decks in 2s and 3s. We have Cogsworth. This is the new Cogsworth from Shimmering Skies. Lets you give a character on the board rush, including himself. We're playing 2 copies of Rabbit and Goat, 2 copies of Magic Broom Swift Cleaner, which is a broom that has a rush. He's a 5-cost, uninkable, 4-cost, 4 strength, 4 willpower that quests for 2. A rush character that can deal 4 damage is not bad, and it has an ability that says when you play this character, shuffle all the brooms in your discard back into your deck. So kind of a random little plus side to just add more broom characters into your deck. 1 copy of Smash, 3 copies of Strength of a Raging Fire, 2 copies of Along Came Zeus, 2 Castle, and 3 Library for our location split, which is very interesting. I'm not really used to seeing the location split, obviously, but we're getting to a location meta. You know, I just finished saying that I'm not a big fan of the locations right now, but in a deck like this, maybe the locations are the way to go, because anytime you play a location, you're Yen Sid's probably going to survive or something because they have to clear the location. And we're playing 1 copy of LeFou, Opportunistic Flunky, which is a 3-cost steel character. He's inkable, he has 2 strength and 3 willpower, and he has an ability that says during your turn, you may play this character for free if an opposing character was banished in a challenge this turn. Not my favorite card. This is a card that I immediately would just cut out of the deck because I just don't think it's the best card in my opinion. And maybe add like another Rabbit, because I think Merlin Rabbit is the best card in Lorcana ever. But really cool to see brooms in top 8 of a 40+ tournament. Not only that, but at the DLC side event, Broom Goons assemble. So you know, I had a broom deck put together and I was getting flamed because I wasn't playing enough brooms apparently. You know, so if you guys are true broom enjoyers, this is a deck list that you might want to check out yourself. It looks pretty good. But yeah, I think Amethyst Steel is in a good spot right now, especially with the brooms, because the brooms have like this aggro package to them, but then like Amethyst Steel in general has like such a good like board, like a mid-range board game control with like Storm, Smash, and Strength and stuff like that. And now you got Pl Games. So one of my favorite plays too with a deck like this is to go really wide with your brooms and your Yen Sids and then keep questing. And then like on the turn where you know their board wipe is coming, like on a Sisu shift or like say a Be Prepared, you can go like Smash on the Sisu so they can't shift, or you can go like Pl Games before turn 5 so they can't grab your swords, or Pl Games before turn 6 so they can't Be Prepared you or something, you know. So it's a very good strategy right now in the meta, I think. Now we have the Lemon Lime deck that's in top 8. Shout out you, Jeffrey Kwan, getting top 8 at the side event at the DLC with Emerald, Amber, and Lemon Lime. Check this out. We are playing 2 copies of Queen Goons, 4 copies of Diablo, Ursula Deceiver, Ariel, Diablo Devoted Herald, Prince John, the Muses. We're also playing 4 Bare Necessities, Sudden Chill, and that's going to be all for the 4 ofs. We got 2 Sir Hiss, which is a nice out to Diablo. You're going to be able to use this card to contest opposing Diablos, and sometimes that evasive character that just quests for 1 over and over and over again will put you that much closer to the finish line, which is very important. I think you need to have respect for a card like Sir Hiss this format, which again goes back to my Ruby Amethyst logic of playing Teeth and Ambitions. We're also playing 2 copies of the Queen Commanding Presence with our 2 copies of the Queen Goons. We got 3 copies of Cricky, the shiftable Kita. We're not playing any of the Kita Goons, so we don't have any targets to shift this Kita on, but using this Kita in combination with Under the Sea while you already have characters on the board means that you're going to be able to pretty much board wipe your opponent for every character they have. And if you have Pain painting the roses red, then you're going to be able to do it even quicker and a lot easier. Under the Sea is a crazy card right now, and in a combination like this, it feels like a one-sided Be Prepared, or it kind of feels like Regeki, you know, for lack of a better term for my Yu-Gi-Oh players out there. Because like I just finished saying, you can use the combination of cards on the field, like painting the roses red, or the shiftable Kita, and then swing with the Under the Sea, sing it with multiple characters because it is a sing together card. And if you have Ariel on the board, it's a lot easier to sing because Ariel cost is a 5-cost singer, which is nice. So we got the 3 roses red. We have 3 You Have Forgotten Me, which is a card from the first chapter that just says your opponent discards 2 cards, which is really nice. Sometimes all they have is 2 cards, and if you have a Prince John on board, you get to draw 2 cards after that, which is actually just insane. 2 copies of You're Welcome for some removal, alongside 3 copies of We Don't Talk About Bruno, the 3 Under the Sea, and the 2 copies of Hidden Cove. Wow. Lemon Lime Aggro really doing its thing. If you don't know how this deck plays out, it's a little bit slow in the beginning. It does feel a little bit inconsistent in my opinion, but being able to use the Muses with Ariel, painting the roses red, manipulating the strength of the opposing characters, and then not only bouncing them to the opponent's hand, but just straight up removing them from the field back into the deck because of Under the Sea is so powerful. So this is a control deck at its finest. It's not really an aggro deck. It does feel kind of aggressive sometimes, but it's really more of a control deck because they spend a lot of time generating their combo pieces so that they can discard your hand and then start picking apart your board. So it's a pretty good deck. It's just, sometimes it has an issue in my opinion with drawing some cards that I don't really want to see all the time. A lot of little characters that you can't quest with immediately, but once they get going, your hand is gone, your board is gone. Cricky's going to be able to work in combination with these high willpower, low strength characters, and if you're not playing around this kind of stuff, you're going to get punished by cards like Cricky, cards like You Have Forgotten Me. So make sure you know these deck lists and make sure you know what your opponent's trying to do. That is all for the DLC top 8 side event deck lists. Shout out all these awesome Illumineers. As you can see, it's a very open meta of 8 different decks in this side event top 8 with a 40+ player tournament and a 2-game format on top of that. But let's take a look at another tournament that was a 3-game format, shall we? All right, this is the top 8 breakdown for the Red Saber Games slash Collectible Exchange case tournament. It was a 41 player tournament held in Southern California. Pretty good turnout for a Southern California tournament. Shout out Red Saber Games and all the homies over there. And then shout out Enchanted IE Phil for gathering this data for Ink Decks and all of us to break down. As you can see, another wide variety meta here. We have a first place from Shane Downey, aka Lorcana Goons, Shane Downey team member. That's my boy right there. He got first place with Ruby Sapphire, and they actually split first place with the Ruby Amethyst player, Sam B. So those are your first place decks right there. And then in top 4, we have an Amethyst Steel and a Ruby Amber Mufasa deck is what it's looking like. Top 8 consisted of a Jafar Wheel deck, a Lemon Lime Sing deck, a Blurple deck, and an Amber Amethyst Aggro deck. So let's take a look at these deck lists, shall we? All right, in first place, we have Shane Downey playing a Ruby Sapphire deck, looking very similar to that Ruby Sapphire deck we just saw from the DLC side event list. Once again, huge shout out to Shane Downey, my personal brother, Lorcana Goons team member. I appreciate all the discussion we do in the chats and in the Discord, so be sure to join our Discord below, and be sure to watch our Quest with a Guest episode. Shane Downey won back-to-back tournaments at the SCG Con Vegas with Ruby Sapphire as well last format, so in my opinion, the man knows what he's doing with the deck, so go watch that episode as well. But let's take a look at his deck profile real quick. We got the 3 ice blocks. We're playing Popsicles, 4 1-jumps, 4 Tipo. We've got 4 copies of Visions of the Future, which is that big Develop the Brain card we were talking about. We got 4 Quill, 4 of the Sisu Daring Visitor, only 1 copy of the Emboldened Warrior Sisu, though. That's the 3-strength Sisu, that quest for 2. 4 copies of Grandma. We got Hero Flavorsham at 4 because it's the best card in Sapphire. 4 Maui, 2 Cuscos, which is, you know, your way to be able to eliminate certain cards like Queen's Castle or any other opposing items. And we're playing the split of 2 Be Prepared and 4 Sisu Empowered Sibling in this deck. We got 3 Madame Medusa, 2 Lucky Dime, and 4 Tamatoa because these are our Exodia pieces, as I like to call them, and 3 Maleficent Monstrous Dragon at the end of the deck, so you can make sure you have some extra removal in Ruby Sapphire. Man, Ruby Sapphire, very powerful. I was talking to Shane about this deck. There were some cards he said he would consider taking out, but in general, he said that Tipo is actually pretty good. I am a Tipo hater. I will go on record saying that I wasn't a big fan of this card. I didn't try it out myself, but he was basically saying that sometimes you just need to get to that ramp for lore. Basically, having an extra copy of a 2 cost that'll get you to 4 ink is very good in a deck like this. So, which is also, again, this is very reminiscent to Sailor's list. So shout out Sailor and all of Team Labyrinth. Go join their Discord too. Go join the 20 Lore Pro Discord too, so you can see their deck lists. But yeah, it's looking like this is the way that people are going to be playing Ruby Sapphire. So be aware of these deck lists and know how many copies of B Prep they're playing, how many copies of Sisu and all that. A lot of the times Sisu is better than B Prep because they can't snipe it out of your hand with Bare Necessities or Ursula. And most of the time decks don't have ways to play around the Sisu empowered sibling. Obviously, if you're playing Emerald, you can play Cove and move cards into the Cove, but this deck plays Maui, so you can just slam Maui on board, clear the Cove, or even Cusco now. You can clear the Cove with Cusco, and this deck for sure will have more than enough ink to not only potentially shift that Sisu on the same turn, but play it for all 8 ink as well. Next up, this is the Ruby Amethyst list that also got first place. Shane and Sam over here split the finals, which was cool to see, so shout out both of you guys. I believe they got like 2 or 3 boxes each, which was really nice. So about 3 boxes of Shimmering Skies, you know, light days of work for Team Goons and Sam over here. Let's take a look at this list though. It's looking very similar to the list from set 4. Nothing too different outside of the 2 addition cards over here that I can spot, like Library, a gift for Bill. We have 2 copies of those. And the new Elsa, the Fifth Spirit. We have 1 copy. This is a 5-cost inkable character, 2 strength, 5 willpower that says Rush and Evasive. So it has both of them, which is actually really crazy. And an extra ability that says when you play this character, exert chosen opposing character, which is really strong in Ruby Amethyst. I was actually talking to my boy Ed Deception, who did really well also in a case tournament this weekend with Ruby Amethyst. He's playing 3 of this Elsa, and he was talking about how he wants to potentially play 4 of Elsa the Fifth Spirit because of how powerful it actually is. And I remember people playing Pinocchio Talkative Puppet in Ruby Amethyst. We saw Pinocchio Talkative Puppet in the top 8 Ruby Am list for the DLC side event, and I feel like Elsa is an inkable Pinocchio Talkative Puppet. Obviously, you can't do it on turn 2, so you can't really combine it with cards like Rafiki or like Chernobog followers to clear the Goons characters, but against like a lot of the aggro decks, the Amber Steel decks, even Diablo, this is a 1 card out to those like very powerful cards like Piglet, Diablo, singable characters like Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, which, you know, you do get to that point against those matchups. So I really do like Elsa, the Fifth Spirit, as an addition to the Ruby Amethyst deck building list that we've been seeing. We're also playing, you know, a lot of the other generic stuff. We got 4 Chernobog followers, 4 brooms, 4 Cuscos, which we haven't seen 4 Cuscos in a minute. I like Cusco a lot. I played Cusco in my list for DLC Texas and finished top 32 there, and I think Cusco's very, very, very good against Amber Steel, Sapphire Ruby, the meta. I think the only cards that Cusco's kind of meh against are kind of some of the more Emerald matchups, but, you know, Cusco's very good. I consider playing it with Teeth and Ambition, just throwing that out there. We got 4 Brawl, so we can make sure we have our Diablo outs. 4 Friends, because we like drawing cards. We have our Petting Zoo package of Foxes, Merlins, and Goats, all at 4, with 3 Crab. 3 Crab is a new addition, I feel, that we haven't really seen in Ruby Amethyst since, like, set 2. I think people were playing Crab in set 3, I think, a little bit too, right? But not that many. But Crab is very good. Crab is very powerful, helps you out locations alongside with Madam and Fox, in combination with Cusco as well. Pumping your Cusco to 4 strength means that Cusco will be able to clear Daisy a turn early, which I think is very, very strong. So consider throwing Crabs back into your deck. We might be going into a Crab meta again, personally. We got 4 copies of Sisu Emboldened Warrior. We're not playing Flynn anymore. No Flynn Rider, but this Sisu is still very strong. This Sisu is very powerful. This is like the Minnie Mouse Surfer from like set 2, where this card will quest for 2 very, very often. But the extra plus side is that we are playing the 1 copy of the Sisu Empowered Sibling. So this card is the shiftable. Be prepared, like we were talking about. And shifting this on turn 6 can literally just win you the game then and there. It's actually insane. We got 4 copies of the Queen's Castle because it feels like a necessary evil still in this meta. For Maui, we got the Medusas at 2. I like Madame Medusa at 2. I don't think you need to play 3. I've always been good on 2. It's in your deck it's in your hand when you need it. You draw so much with this deck where I feel like, you know, it'll end up in your hand pretty quickly. And most of the time you can play it and bounce it back with a Snake or a Fox or something. And 4 copies, and then 3 copies of Be Prepared. It is one of the best cards in the game. Only 3 copies though, because, you know, it can get hit by Ursula Deceiver or Bare Necessities. There's a lot of Amber Steel in the meta, and, you know, we're supplementing that with only the 1 copy of Sisu. So that's kind of like the 4th B Prep in a sense. But this is like the perfect list for me, because I strongly feel like the only way you lose in Ruby Amethyst, first of all, Ruby Amethyst is the best deck in Lorcana. I'm just going to throw that out there. Merlin Rabbit is insane. Merlin Goat is insane. I think the only way you lose in Ruby Amethyst is when you draw too many uninkables and you can't ink. And I need to stress that I love this list so much because my man Sam over here probably figured that out, and he's only playing 10 uninkables. We're playing 4 Rabbit, we're playing 2 Medusa, and then 3 B Prepped, and the 1 Sisu for our uninkable count. It is perfect. I think that is definitely the way you want to go with a deck like this. It has just so many good cards, and the uninkable cards are arguably some of the best cards, but we can bounce them back to our hand, and most of the time we're going to be able to find them with the amount of draw power we have in this deck. So I just, yeah, 10 uninkables. Yes, chef's kiss. It's the way to go. Shout out Sam. Shout out Shane Downey for splitting the finals with these awesome decks. There's another cool list from the top 4 of the Red Saber Games case tournament. This is from Carlos R. Shout out you. It's a deck called the Mr. Steal Your Girl. Shout out Carlos R. for these awesome deck names. And it's looking like we're playing an Amethyst Steel, more of a mid-range deck, not necessarily an early aggro deck, kind of control almost. We got 4 copies of Captain Hook, the Duelist. We got 3 Chernobog Followers, 2 copies of the Cogsworth Watchman, 2 copies of Fire the Cannons, 3 Snake, 3 Mr. Smee, 4 Friends, 4 Foxes, 2 Crabs, 4 Pete Games Referee. Seems pretty mandatory in the Steel deck right now. We got 2 copies of Then Along Came Zeus, 2 copies of Madam M Elephant, only 3 copies of Goat, which is something I'm not used to seeing. Then we got 4 Rabbits, 4 Castles, 3 Elsa Fifth Spirit, and we got 3 Grab Your Swords. Alongside that, we have the 2 copies of the new Simba. This is the inkable 6-drop Simba, son of Mufasa. Went over this card earlier. Shiftable, item removal / location removal. So just very, very good. You have no shiftable targets, but you don't need them, especially in a deck like this where you're controlling the early game. You can play this, on turn 6 and be perfectly fine. And then we got the 6-drop Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, the enchanted one specifically, and the enchanted Elsa Spirit of Winter. Very nice. You can shift this Elsa onto your Elsa the Fifth Spirit, which is actually a play that I've never really thought about. I might even consider adding that to my Ruby Amethyst list. That's pretty cool actually, because you can play Elsa Fifth Spirit on turn 5 and then shift Elsa Spirit of Winter on turn 6. So that's pretty nice, right? And in a deck like this, then you can bounce them both back with Fox and then bam, smack into them, or do some good trades with maybe your Captain Hooks or something. See, so not only are there multiple color combinations you can play this meta, but there's multiple ways to play those color combinations in this meta. We've kind of seen like a more aggro list from the Amethyst Steel, the other Amethyst Steel list we saw, and this one seems a lot more control / mid-range oriented, right? Now we have the big spice. Shout out Brian W for getting top 4 at this case tournament with Ruby Amber Mufasa. We're playing a lot of different cards that I'm not really used to seeing in the Ruby Amber Mufasa combination. We have 4 copies of the Mulan Soldier as our 1-drop alongside Pluto, and we have 3 Gaston, 4 Mother Gothel, 4 Gaston, because these are like the early game cards that you pretty much want to play in this deck 100% of the time. Mother Gothel is a target for Rapunzel, so you can always heal that character, and this Gaston is going to be able to let you play characters way earlier by lowering the cost of them by 2 ink, which is crazy. Basically letting you fish out cards like Madame Medusa or the new Maximus or any 6-drop character on turn 4, like a lot earlier, or even something like Mufasa, Maui, or this Donald Duck Pie Slinger, which is not a card that I would think I'd ever see in a tournament report. Donald Duck Pie Slinger has an ability that says Shift 3. He's actually a Shift 4. Sorry about that. And if you played him through Shift, your opponent loses 2 lore, and if your opponent has more than 10 lore, bro has +6 strength, which is actually kind of crazy. That 6 strength can just clear, and actually it'll be 9 strength total. It'll be +6, so that'll just clear anything. Very interesting deck choices, deck tech right there. It's a 3/6 body, which isn't bad, I guess. Then we have 3 copies of the Sisu Emboldened Warrior, 2 copies of Super Goof, 4 Rapunzel, because you just need Rapunzel in this deck. It's the best card in this deck, and you can heal up your Mulans or your Mother Gothel to ensure your draw power is there and ready. We got 4 copies of Maui, 4 Mufasas. We're using 3 Medusa, 2 Maximus. This is the new Maximus from Shimmering Skies. It's a 6-cost character with 3 strength, 5 willpower that quests for 2. So that's already a very good stat line for this type of body, in my opinion. As an ability also that says at the end of your turn, if you have any characters in play with 5 or more strength, you gain 2 lore. Then, if you have any in play with 10 or more strength, you gain 5 lore. So maybe that's the play you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to combo this off with, like, Donald Duck Pie Slinger or something. Maybe there's some combinations of cards that I'm not necessarily seeing. But then we also have the Mulan Elite's Archer over here as our shiftable target for Mulan. This card's actually pretty good because a lot of Emerald players, a lot of aggro players don't respect this card, so you can shift this on turn 5, or if you have Gaston on board, you could even shift it on turn 4 potentially, and then use your Mulan to clear a character and deal extra 5 damage to 2 other characters on the board, which could honestly just make the game swing in your favor with the amount of tempo you get with this card. Pretty high potential in my opinion, pretty strong. We also have Aladdin, Heroic Outlaw. We haven't seen this Aladdin in a long time since the first chapter. There's a Shift 5 Aladdin that quests for 2 that says, during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore and your opponent loses 2 lore. So it's like a mega Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood. This card was so big in the first chapter, my goons. If you guys weren't playing the first chapter, combining this with the Rabbit's White Pocket Watch was actually insane. So to see this, you don't know how, this is crazy to see this in the deck, right? We have Scar, the Vicious Cheater, 7 cost uninkable, lets you clear the board basically against aggro decks. He has Rush, 6 Strength, 5 Willpower, and whenever he, on your turn banishes another character, you can re-ready him, which means you can challenge again, and just keep doing that till you clear the board. We got Stitch, Carefree Surfer, because he draws us 2 cards, 3 Maleficent Monsters Dragon, because seeing this off of Mufasa is probably a good day, and then 2 copies of Sisu, Empowered Sibling, which is very powerful because it's our board wipe. We don't play any songs or actions in this deck because we want to make sure that Mufasa always has a good target. So with that being said, our AoE, our board wipe is going to be this Sisu. So it's pretty cool that we have a board wipe in Lorcana that is not necessarily action oriented, because a lot of times, like, getting sniped by your bare necessities or something, it really hurts your deck. So a deck like this, you're gonna benefit a lot when you play against an Emerald deck, because anytime they go Ursula, or anytime the Amber decks go, like, let me look at your hand and discard a non-character, looky, I only have characters, buddy. You're not going to get any value off those cards. So very strong. Congrats to you, Brian W. We actually got another Amethyst Steel in this top 8 from this case tournament. Shout out Christopher B. This list is very different. Just a very interesting list. We have 4 copies of Archimedes, 3 Fire the Cannons, 4 Robin Hood Goons, 4 Amethyst Chromicon. Very cool to see. You just extra draw power in the deck. 4 Blue Fairy, 4 copies of Jafar. Oh, very interesting. I wonder where this is going. 3 Smee, 4 Friends, 3 Pete Games, 3 Along Came Zeus, 2 Jafar Dreadnought, which is very good in combination with our Blue Fairy, because Blue Fairy lets us draw cards anytime we play a Floodborn, which is really cool. And we're also playing our Jafar, Keeper of Secrets. This is like a slide for the Sky Dragon for the Yu-Gi-Oh players out there. 4 Inkable character, gains strength depending on how many cards your opponent has in their hand. It's like a Sisu, Empowered Sibling, and a quest for 2 with 5 Willpower. We're playing these because we're playing the Jafar, the Striking Illusionist. This is the Floodborn Jafar that basically lets you gain 1 lore anytime you draw an extra card while it's exerted. So pretty nice, actually. There was a dude who was playing this at our locals tournament last night. Shout out Isaiah. I saw you cooking with the Amethyst Steel wheel. Pretty cool. We're playing 2 copies of Magicka Dispel. This is the new Mahika from the Shimmering Skies that says, during the opponent's turn, if an effect would cause you to discard 1 or more cards from your hand, you do not discard. So this is pretty cool out to, like, the Ursula Deceiver or the Bare Necessities type cards that I've been talking about, because you can slap this on the board and now your opponent cannot get rid of your Whole New World. And a lot of times a deck like this, a strategy like this, might live and die by Whole New World or the friends on the other side, or your ability to sing songs, right? So that's pretty good. We got 4 copies of Whole New World, 4 copies of the new Archimedes Electric Owl, which is a Flutterborn character, for our Blue Fairy, 2 copies of Grab Your Sword, 4 Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood, and 2 copies of Tinkerbell Giant Fairy with the Jafar Striking Illusionist. So yeah, Jafar Steel Wheel, still taking some dubs in these tournaments. Shout out you, Christopher B. Pretty cool, man. I'm telling you, I saw this deck cooking yesterday. I saw somebody have double Jafar exerted, and they played 1 Whole New World, and they just gained 14 lore, and that was GG's. And in combination with cards like Pete, it makes it so that most of the time you're going to be able to set up those plays and not really have to worry about your opponent playing actions to ruin your plays. Next up, we got a Lemon Lime deck from Nathan C. Shout out you. This deck looking pretty cool. We got 4 copies of both Diablos. We got the Kita Goons at 4, Sudden Chill, Ursula Deceiver, Ariel, Prince John, the Muses, the Shiftable Kita, 3 Under the Sea, and 4, we don't talk about Bruno. We're also playing 2 copies of the Cove, 3 Painting the Roses Red. We got 3 Bare Necessities. 3, You Have Forgotten Me. 2, You're Welcome. And 2 copies of Ursula. This is the Amber Ursula, Eric's bride. Very interesting. Don't really see this one played too much, but it is a shiftable character. You can shift it by discarding a song. Sometimes you got extra songs in your hand, so maybe you might want to shift this onto your Ursula the Deceiver. And whenever this character quests, you basically get a Bare Necessities ability. You look at the opponent's hand, and they have to discard of your choosing a non-character card. So pretty cool. It's a pretty strong way to out opposing pesky locations or be prepared, for example. And we've seen the power of Lemon Lime Aggro. I was explaining how you can use the combination of painting the roses red, Key to Protector of Atlantis with Under the Sea to just use a one-sided board wipe on the opponent, and that is very strong in my opinion. And it's a discard deck, so against decks like Ruby Amethyst, they're really going to have to make sure they don't keep any songs in their hand, any locations in their hand, and even if they do, you can still, swing in combination with Prince John and You Have Forgotten Me, right? So, or Sudden Chill, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot of ways to play this deck. This list is a little different than the one we saw at the DLC side event. That one wasn't playing the Key to Goons, it was playing some other different cards, but, I do think that this deck is going to be very popular in this meta because Under the Sea is very strong, and just being able to undersea only, one side of the board is crazy. Even more spice for you, my goons. We have a Blurple deck in this top 8 of the case tournament, playing a variety of cards. We got the 3 copies of Rafiki. This is the Rafiki that has Challenger +3. 4 Chernobog followers. We got Snake. We got 4 Tipo. 4 friends on the other side. We got the Petting Zoo package. 4 Fox, Goat, and Rabbit. Only 3 Crab, though. 4 copies of Mickey Detective. 2 Mahika Dispel, which is the card we just went over, so no discard in here. We have 2 copies of Bell Accomplished Mystic. This card's pretty cool. It's a 5-cost inkable. It has a Shift 3 ability, which you won't do because you have no shift targets. Can quest for 2, and it has an extra ability that says when you play this character, move up to 3 damage from one of your characters to a chosen opposing character. So it's pretty cool because it plays around resist. We don't have any like Ruby cards that damage or like come in damage or nothing, but this card has a lot of high potential. A lot of times you're doing really good trades with your foxes, your snakes, or something like that, or even your Mickey Mouse Detective, and then this Bell can move over damage. Normally I see this Bell be played with the Mim Elephant because that can save damage as well. That's a heavy body, but the Mim Elephant does on its own already, right? We have 2 copies of Cogsworth because you got to respect steel decks. Against steel decks, if you play 1 Cogsworth, double Cogsworth, most of the time the game is over. So I can understand why a deck like this would want to play that. 4 copies of Elsa the Fifth Spirit. What was I just saying? This card's underrated. This card's pretty good. And then shifting the Spirit of Winter onto the Fifth Spirit sounds pretty crazy. So we got 3 copies of Elsa Spirit of Winter as our end game. We got 4 Let It Go because singing it with Elsa is pretty nice. 2 copies of the Cusco Selfish Emperor to out our locations, and then 1 copy of the Ana Mystical Majesty. This is the new Ana from the Shimmering Sky set. It's a 7-cost uninkable Floodborn character, so if you have Floodborn synergy, it will trigger that. Shift for 4. Has a 4 strength, 5 willpower stat line, can quest for 2, and she says when you play this character, exert all opposing characters. So it's like a mass exert, which is pretty nice, right? So if you have characters on the board already and you play this Ana, every character on the opposing board is going to get exerted, and you can start doing some really cool trades probably with your foxes or some of your strong cards like Snake or something. Very unfortunate that we don't have many good like small Ana targets to shift this onto, but I mean when you're ramping with Blurple, you probably just want to get to your 7 drops as fast as possible. We're playing Ursula the Sea Witch Queen as a very strong 7 drop, one of our bombs, and then last but not least we have Mufasa, ruler of the Pride Rock, right? We haven't really been seeing this Mufasa see too much play lately in these deck profiles, but cool to see 3 of them in this deck. This is the new card from Shimmering Skies. When you play this card, you got to exert the rest of your ink as well, but then you can get 2 random cards from your inkwell back to your hand. And when this character quests, and it quests for 4 by the way, you can re-ready all your ink, basically giving you a second turn. And in a deck like Ruby Amethyst, where you could just keep drawing cards, keep playing rabbits to refill your hand, having that second turn sounds a little bit outrageous. I know a lot of people are trying to make Blurple work, and no, they're not playing the Merlin Shift character in this Blurple deck. Maybe this is the way you make Blurple work. And last but not least, we had to cover an Hyper Aggro in this top 8 because it's set 5 format, and there's always going to be Hyper Aggro running around now that we have the Daisy Duck. But this list looking a little bit different from this top 8. Shout out you, Harrison M, getting top 8 at the Red Saber Games collectible exchange case tournament. We have 4 copies of Daisy Duck, Chernobog followers. We got the Leglos, the Maleficents, the Brooms. 4 copies of Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, which is different from the other list we saw. We got 4 Snake, 4 Pig. That's some real pig activity right there. Simba's at 4. 3 copies of Bare Necessities. 2 copies of Wendy Darling, which we don't really see too often. This card's pretty good. 2 cost Inkable, 1/3 Vanilla that quests for 2. You know, it's a good body that can quest for 2, which is nice on turn 2. We got 2 copies of Arthur, Wizard's Apprentice. We haven't seen this in a very long time. Wow, for my players that are new, if you don't know, this card was pretty popular in set 2. Arthur, Wizard's Apprentice is a 3 cost uninkable character, 1 strength, 3 willpower that says whenever this character quests, you may return chosen character of yours back to your hand and you gain 2 more lore. So this Arthur can potentially quest for 3. It can bounce back your characters so you can play them again readied. So like your Lilos, for example. And obviously, if you bounce back a goat, you're going to gain 4 lore, which is nice. If you play that goat that same turn, that's a 5th lore. So that's pretty insane. And we got 3 copies of Baloo because it is an inkable. I thought this was an automatic 4 of, but maybe not. We have 2 copies of Donald Duck Musketeer, another card that I religiously will play 4 of, 2 copies of Mim Fox for the library, and 4 Merlin Goat, because Merlin Goat just wins games. The card literally says gain 1 lore, and when you're playing Knowledge and Power to gain 2 lore, and Daisy Duck to gain all this lore, Merlin Goat's going to be able to close out that game. So shout out Harrison M, shout out all these wonderful players for doing well this weekend at your local tournaments. Be sure to check out inkdex.com. They upload and update tournaments all the dang time, which is really awesome. So shout out you guys, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're a Lorcana Goon and you like this content, because it does help the channel out a lot. So really do appreciate it. I'll put the links to the decks in the description below, so be sure to check that out, and let me know below your opinions on these deck lists, and let me know what you think about the new upcoming set 5 meta. Can't wait to see what set 5 has to offer us, but until then, stay tuned to Lorcana Goons, and we'll see you goons next time.